The crystal glass in my hand trembled slightly as Devon, my husband, stood up in the glow of the chandelier-lit room. He smoothed his tie with the same precise gesture he used before quarterly earnings calls, as if he were about to address investors instead of the people gathered to celebrate 12 years of our marriage. His posture was straight, confident, rehearsed. "Thank you to all our friends and colleagues for being here tonight," he said, his voice steady and practiced. "Alexis and I have been on a long journey together." I smiled on cue, the kind of composed smile expected of a woman in my position, elegant and supportive. But something fractured quietly inside me. Devon's eyes skimmed past mine too quickly, like a box checked off on a list. The smile he gave me was the same one he reserved for major clients, polite, distant, transactional. I let my gaze drift around the long table at Belladonna, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, where the lighting was soft and the price of a single dinner rivaled a senior assistant's monthly paycheck. Around us sat Devon's inner circle, investors, executives, and strategic partners who had helped him stretch his logistics empire across the Midwest. They laughed easily, glasses raised, comfortable in the glow of shared success. 4 seats away sat Haley Monroe, the company's new marketing director, draped in a bold red dress that drew attention without apology. She was too young, too self-assured, and far too accustomed to the way Devon looked at her. I had seen their glances cross the table more than once that evening. Maybe no one else noticed, but I did. I had lived long enough and watched closely enough to recognize the signs of something carefully concealed. "We've built so many memories together," Devon continued, lifting his glass higher. "But tonight, I want to share something special." Across the table, Haley leaned forward slightly. Beneath the linen-covered table, I saw her hand slip into her purse. My throat tightened. Devon inhaled, clearly preparing for a dramatic reveal. "I know this may come as a surprise, but actually—" "Let me say it," Haley interrupted, rising smoothly to her feet. Her voice carried with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention, crisp and clear, like she was delivering a keynote. The clatter of cutlery stopped mid-motion. "Devon and I are getting married," she announced, lifting her hand to display a sparkling ring, triumphant and unapologetic. Silence swallowed the room. Somewhere, a spoon slipped from trembling fingers and hit porcelain. Devon remained standing, jaw set, eyes strained with the effort of appearing calm. I placed my glass down without a sound. Every gaze in the room turned toward me, waiting. Tears, anger, a scene. Haley's smile widened, radiant, victorious. "He deserves real happiness," she said smoothly, "and I'm lucky to be the one who can give him that." I didn't cry. I straightened in my chair and met Devon's eyes directly. Then I smiled. Not the polite, conditioned smile I had worn through years of corporate dinners, but something sharper, something that made his confidence falter. His fingers twitched. Haley glanced at me, briefly unsettled. They believed they had humiliated me, ended me in front of everyone who mattered. What they didn't realize was that this was the exact moment I made my first move. After Haley's announcement, the atmosphere felt hollowed out, as if the air itself had been drained from the room. Still, I remained seated, composed, my attention fixed on Devon. He adjusted his tie again, scanning faces, clearly unsettled by my silence. No tears, no accusations, no collapse. I lifted my glass and tapped it lightly. "Congratulations," I said evenly. Haley hesitated. Devon tilted his head, studying me, trying to predict what I would do next. 45 minutes later, the dinner concluded. Devon and Haley left together in a pre-booked car. I didn't watch them go. I left the restaurant and went somewhere else entirely. The Kant Tower loomed over downtown Cleveland, Ohio, its glass facade reflecting the city lights. The 44th floor, home to Ashford Logistics' official headquarters, was still illuminated. What Devin didn't know was that the 44th floor, absent from the public elevator directory, housed the true nerve center of the company. My fingerprint activated the security panel. The doors opened silently, obediently. Only 2 people knew I existed here. Reuben, our family attorney since my father's time, and Nenna, my private assistant since I completed my MBA at Columbia. My father, Richard Belmont, had been deliberate in everything he did. When he died suddenly while I was still young, he didn't leave me a polished empire. He left me control, networks of private equity, majority ownership, quiet leverage. I remembered his words from our final meeting in New York. No one takes a young woman seriously, not even with the Belmont name, so let them underestimate you, then move them where you want. I listened. When Devin applied for a COO role at a struggling logistics firm, I approved his candidacy. Through layered holdings, I injected capital. Through careful nominations, I elevated him to CEO 3 years later. Devin never questioned his rapid ascent. He was too busy admiring his reflection in the doors that opened for him. I took my seat in my unmarked office and opened the wall safe hidden behind a charcoal painting. Inside lay the original transfer deed of Ashford Logistics, stamped and sealed, listing Alexis Belmont Pierce as sole owner. I photographed every page and sent them to Reuben with a single message: Activate Phase 2. See you Monday. I opened Devin's restructuring presentation and rewrote it entirely. By morning, shareholders would receive a new file: Interim CEO Alexis Belmont Pierce. When I closed the laptop, my reflection stared back at me, no longer the woman behind the man. The next morning, at exactly 7:30, I initiated Protocol Artemis. Fingerprint, facial recognition, offline passcode. Access granted. Nenna entered with a tablet. Devin just tried logging in. Access denied. Phase 1 complete. The evidence followed. Emails, recordings, signed documents. Devin and Haley's trail was thorough, careless. I sent everything to Reuben. Devin called 8 times. I ignored him. His voicemail came next. Alexis, you're overreacting. Then Haley's message, you were just the wife. I forwarded without comment. That afternoon, the boardroom fell silent as folders were opened. Devin froze when he saw me at the head of the table. Explanations were demanded. Pages turned. 5 minutes passed in heavy quiet. The chairman finally spoke. Devin's name was stripped of authority in that moment. I adjourned the meeting myself. Acting CEO, full audit. I walked out to whispers and disbelief. 3 weeks later, the annual shareholder meeting filled the Langston Grand Hotel. Devin's portrait was gone. I arrived early, calm, focused. At precisely 9 o'clock, Devin stepped up to the podium, hollow-eyed, forcing steadiness in his voice. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for being here today. I know there have been misunderstandings and internal disruptions recently, but I'm here to reaffirm my leadership and the future direction of Ashford. A few polite claps echoed, mostly from smaller shareholders who hadn't yet caught up with the news. I didn't stand immediately. I waited for Devin to finish presenting his doctored financial report, full of colorful graphs, hiding a $3.8 million loss from the Midwest Regional Project. Just as he was about to move on to restructuring strategies, I stepped onto the stage, calm, without any need for introduction. If I may interrupt, Devin froze. Alexis, this isn't the time. I'm Alexis Belmont Pierce, I said clearly into the microphone, legal owner of 64.3% of Ashford Logistics. Silence fell across the room. Devin stammered, What? What are you talking about? I nodded to the technician by the projector. The massive LED screen lit up, displaying the company's legal structure chart. Ownership level, Belmont Estate Holdings. Chair, Alexis Belmont Pierce. Executive level, Devin Pierce. Interim CEO, previously suspended. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room.
I continued. Devin Pierce was appointed CEO 14 years ago under a family asset management agreement with powers strictly limited by legacy protection clauses. He was never authorized to transfer shares, approve projects over $500,000, or appoint senior staff without my written consent. I turned to the board. I have sufficient evidence proving these clauses have been repeatedly violated over the past 3 years. An older board member spoke up. We were never informed that you were behind the entire structure. I never needed a title, I replied. I needed safety until safety no longer existed. I clicked the next slide. The screen shifted to a series of emails, coded exchanges between Devin and Victoria Hale. Victoria wasn't in the room, but her image was crystal clear, wearing a deep red dress, attending a party in Miami, holding a champagne glass and smiling as she dangled a USB drive containing internal project files. I paused to let the audience absorb the image, then spoke. She was a mid-level project assistant, no clearance for classified documents, and yet she obtained full data on the north-south logistics route, stole client information, and leaked it to our competitors, Southern Cross Shipping, where she now serves as the newly appointed CCO. Devin's face went pale. Some shareholders stood up. One of them said aloud, "You call this a restructuring, Devin?" I concluded, as the legal owner and board-authorized acting executive, I hereby request the immediate suspension of all executive powers held by Devin Pierce and launch an independent legal investigation with the support of Thompson & Lee law offices. I looked directly into the internal broadcast camera, and if Victoria Hale is watching this session, I only have one thing to say. Reputation can be painted over, but the truth will show. Applause erupted, not out of celebration, but shock. Devin lowered his head, fists clenched. He had nothing left to say. I stepped off the stage. No need to look back. Within 24 hours of the shareholder meeting, an internal statement was released by the board. Devin Pierce was suspended as CEO. Victoria Hale was under investigation for ethical misconduct and corporate data breaches. It all happened swiftly, almost ruthlessly, but no one could claim it was unjust. Devin was ordered to vacate the premises within 4 hours. He exited Ashford Logistics headquarters under the indifferent stares of the very employees who used to flatter him. His access badge was deactivated. Every internal system account from email to approval portals had been locked out by Protocol Artemis. I still remember the image of Devin in the lobby furiously calling, only to get no answer, no assistant, no lawyer, no Victoria by his side. The black BMW he'd driven for 10 years, company-owned. The penthouse at Riverside Heights, registered to Belmont Estate under trustee control. His personal expense accounts, already secured behind dual authorization protocols he never bothered to learn, thinking he was too clever to be caught. That same day, Thompson & Lee officially submitted a motion to freeze all assets held in Devin's name for 60 days to support the investigation into willful financial manipulation. His personal accounts were frozen, credit cards declined, the Patek Philippe watch he flaunted at conferences requested for return, purchased with company funds without approval. As for Victoria, her fall was quieter but far more toxic. She disappeared from social media right after the meeting, but 2 days later, the internal system of Southern Cross Shipping, where she had just assumed the CCO role, posted a termination notice, citing unforeseen breach of confidentiality. They didn't wait for a verdict. 3 email threads and a single office surveillance clip were enough to reveal her true face to the entire industry. In logistics and transportation, reputation can't be bought with red lipstick or a tight dress.
Victoria was blacklisted from every major industry association. Panel invitations vanished. Third-party contracts she used to broker canceled without hesitation. No title, no income, and no more young CEO dream she once bragged in that Forbes local interview 3 months ago. I didn't track them closely. That someone I know in corporate legal sent me a photo of Victoria dragging a suitcase out of a service department in Lower Manhattan after her card was declined. They used to think they held all the power, that I would stay silent forever, that a woman behind the curtain would never step forward. Devin tried to contact me twice, once by email, once by letter. Both were returned. He even tried to call my mother, but she only replied with one sentence: "She owes you nothing, and there's nothing left to say." I didn't celebrate their downfall, but I didn't pity them either. What Devin and Victoria traded away for a few flashy years was their dignity and trust. Once you lose those, everything else is just smoke. On Monday morning at 8:30 a.m., I walked into Ashford Logistics headquarters for the first time as what I had never publicly claimed to be, CEO and legal owner of Ashford Holdings. No longer Devin's shadow, no longer the soft-spoken wife at dinner tables, quietly swallowing insults. I stepped into the lobby in an ivory suit, hair pinned back, my expression so composed it made even those who knew the truth hesitate. The head of communications, the one who once leaked internal files to Victoria, lowered his head the moment he saw me. The accounting manager, who had allowed Devin to use company funds for personal expenses, fumbled to greet me like he was facing an auditor. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just walked straight ahead. 30 minutes later, in the 15th floor conference room, the official announcement was broadcast live to every branch nationwide.
I stood at the podium and looked straight into the camera. Good morning. I'm Alexis Pierce, and this might be the first time you hear my name as a leader, but the truth is, I've been running Ashford Holdings for 14 years under the internal name Artemis Trust. No applause, no one dared speak, but out of the 15 people in the room, not one looked away. I continued, my voice steady. I stayed silent to protect stability, but what just happened proves that silence only empowers the wrong people. Starting today, Ashford enters a new era. I pressed the remote control. The screen behind me lit up with a new logo, a fusion of the Artemis Trust symbol and Winston Global. I officially announced Ashford Holdings is merging with Winston Global, once the fiercest rival of Devin Pierce. A wave of murmurs spread across the rows. I knew why. Devin had blocked every past attempt at collaboration with Winston Global, but that was history. Back then, Devin still had a title. Now he didn't even have clearance to enter the building. I looked up. This merger isn't just about finance. It's about leadership philosophy. We choose transparency. We choose efficiency over favoritism. And we choose talent over connections. That last line silenced a few faces below. They knew exactly what that meant. 2 hours later, I signed 3 senior-level personnel orders. 2 employees were suspended pending investigation for dishonesty. 1 was terminated for manipulating financial reports to curry favor with Devin. No early notice, no HR meetings, "Oh, thank you for your service" script. I sent a single message across the entire system. The Devin and Victoria era is over. That same afternoon, I held a closed-door meeting with the Winston Global team at the Hilton, joined by our financial partner flying in from London. The purpose? Finalize a $200 million investment to restructure our sustainable supply chain for the coming year. The irony? This was the exact proposal I had submitted to Devin 2 years ago, the one he tossed in the trash with the comment, "Women don't understand logistics." Today, I signed that deal in my own name. Me, The woman once dismissed as decor beside the CEO was now the highest-ranking executive of one of the largest logistics firms on the Eastern Seaboard. As I left the meeting room, a young female employee from Winston approached me hesitantly. "Alexis, I read your file. I just want to say thank you for no longer staying silent." I gave her a small nod, and this time I smiled, not out of victory, but because I knew I wasn't just standing up for myself. I had opened the door for many others who were once dismissed, who were once called the support, and I wasn't stopping here. A month after the merger announcement, I returned to the old building on Fairmont Street, once my father, George Pierce's, private office. The third-floor room still kept its classic architecture: wood-paneled ceilings, black-framed glass windows, and leather-bound bookshelves straight out of 1960s America. Everything inside remained untouched, as if no one had dared disturb it for 15 years. No tech screens, no smartboards, but there was one thing I remembered clearly: the left drawer of his desk. I pulled it open, and there it was, the old wooden box wrapped in velvet blue, lying still as if it had been waiting. I took out the silver signet ring engraved with the original Asher crest, a keepsake passed down from my grandfather. Beneath it lay a steel Rolex, not extravagantly priced, but the last gift my father gave me before he died in an accident I still believe wasn't entirely coincidental. I slipped the ring onto my right hand, watching the light catch the dulled stone. A flood of old memories rushed back, days when I sat on my father's lap as he explained how a single contract could shape the destiny of an entire company. That afternoon, I held a private press briefing in that very room. No flashy logos, no elaborate decor, just me standing in front of the camera. I once hid my true identity to protect the legacy my father left behind, but from today on, I no longer have to hide. I raised my hand, the silver ring catching the golden light of dusk, and said clearly, "As the rightful heir, I hereby restore the Ashford Legacy Office, the original headquarters, founded by George Pierce in 1972. Industry veterans, once rivals, bowed to recognition. Global financial media began calling me the silent daughter who reclaimed a dynasty. That I knew reclaiming a legacy wasn't enough. I couldn't repeat the past. I had to build something for the future." A few weeks later, I restructured the Ashford Foundation, which had merely been a scholarship fund under Devon, into a powerful platform focused on developing and supporting young women in business leadership and finance. The first initiative was called the Athena Program, a leadership training series designed specifically for girls from minority communities across the Midwest. I personally selected the first 30 participants. No GPA, no recommendation letters required, just a self-recorded video explaining why they believed they were worth investing in. One clip stopped me cold. A young, brown-skinned girl, voice trembling, stood in a worn-out garage in Ohio and said, "I just want one chance to prove that women weren't born to be background characters." I called her that same night. At the program's launch, I invited her to speak beside me, a message to an industry still riddled with bias. Women don't wait to be chosen. They build the road so others don't have to wait. In the press, I became the new model, a CEO who rebuilt a legacy and forged a future with quiet strength. People asked if I planned to remarry. I just smiled and said, "I've just married myself again, and that relationship deserves priority." Soon after, I was invited to be the keynote speaker at the Women in Capital Leadership Conference in New York. Just before I stepped onto the stage, an organizer asked how I'd like to be introduced. I paused for a few seconds, then answered softly, "Call me Alexis Pierce." The girl once erased from the canvas, now the one holding the brush to paint the entire scene anew. Alexis Pierce's journey is a powerful reminder that silence does not equal weakness. Betrayed, dismissed, and pushed out of the empire bearing her own family's name, she didn't seek noisy revenge. Instead, she quietly gathered the truth and prepared every step to reclaim her rightful place. In real life, those underestimated are often the ones holding the key to real change. And when they rise, they don't just demand justice, they redefine what power and resilience truly mean. What are your thoughts on Alexis's journey and the fate of those who betrayed her? Share your perspective below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful emotional family stories ahead.